While most countries operate under laws designed to protect their citizens and maintain order, North Korea's legal system exists to uphold the iron grip of its dictatorship. The regime, led by Supreme Leader Kim Jong-Un, enforces some of the most unusual, oppressive, and baffling laws imaginable. In today's video, we'll explore 15 of the most bizarre and shocking laws in North Korea. Number 15. Three-generation punishment. The three-generation punishment rule, also known as kin punishment, is one of the most extreme and horrifying laws in North Korea. Under this rule, if an individual is found guilty of committing a crime against the state, their entire family, spanning 3 generations, can be punished alongside them. This means the offender's parents, grandparents, children, and even grandchildren can face imprisonment or worse, regardless of their innocence or involvement in the crime. The rationale behind this law is rooted in the regime's strategy to instill fear and prevent rebellion by punishing not only the culprit, but also their loved ones, thereby deterring dissent and ensuring compliance. The origins of this law date back to the aftermath of World War II. North Korea's leadership implemented this rule to eliminate the tainted bloodlines of those they deemed enemies of the state, such as political dissidents or rebels. The regime believed that by eradicating entire family lines, they could extinguish any lingering resistance to their rule. This practice has since become a cornerstone of the regime's oppressive control over its population. In practice, the three-generation punishment rule means that if a person is accused of a crime, such as defection, disloyalty, or possession of banned materials, their entire family can be sent to labor camps. These camps are notorious for their brutal conditions, where prisoners are forced to do hard labor, endure malnourishment, and face constant abuse. Children born in these camps are raised as prisoners themselves, inheriting the guilt of their family members. Some reports suggest that families sent to these camps are often never released, effectively condemning them to a lifetime of suffering. Number 14. Penalty for making international calls. In North Korea, the act of making international phone calls without government authorization is considered a capital offense, punishable by death. This harsh law stems from the regime's obsession with controlling information and isolating its citizens from the outside world. North Korea's leadership tightly censors communication and media to prevent foreign influences from undermining the regime's propaganda and exposing the population to the realities of life outside the country. The government employs a domestic mobile phone network called Koreolink, which blocks all international calls. Additionally, signal jammers are stationed near borders to prevent unauthorized communication with neighboring countries like South Korea or China. All electronic communications, including phone calls and internet usage, are heavily monitored, ensuring that citizens cannot freely exchange information or seek help from the outside world. One of the most infamous cases occurred in 2014, when a North Korean man used a smuggled phone and SIM card to contact his family, who had defected to South Korea. Authorities tracked the signal and arrested him, publicly executing him shortly after. This event served as a grim warning to others about the consequences of bypassing the government's communication restrictions. Smuggled phones are often used to make calls near the Chinese border, where networks overlap, but the risks involved are enormous as authorities actively hunt for such activity. The regime's fear of international communication lies in its potential to expose citizens to the stark contrast between their lives and those of people in freer societies. Hearing about the relative prosperity, opportunities, and personal freedoms enjoyed elsewhere could incite dissatisfaction or rebellion among North Koreans. By enforcing the death penalty, the government aims to prevent such information from spreading and to discourage citizens from seeking alternatives to the oppressive system they live under. Number 13. Mandatory respect for leader portraits. In North Korea, respect for the portraits of the nation's leaders is not just encouraged, it is mandatory by law. Every household is required to display portraits of the late leaders Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, and keeping them in pristine condition is considered a symbol of loyalty and reverence to the regime. This rule is one of the many ways the government enforces idolization of the ruling Kim family, depicting them as godlike figures above criticism or reproach. The importance placed on these portraits is so extreme that during emergencies, such as fires or natural disasters, citizens are required to prioritize saving the portraits over their own belongings or even their loved ones. Failing to do so can result in severe punishment, including imprisonment or forced labor. For instance, in 2020, a mother reportedly faced jail time for saving her children from a house fire, but leaving behind the portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Such stories highlight the oppressive nature of this law, which places the perceived honor of the Kim family above basic human instincts and the safety of individuals. To enforce this rule, citizens are provided with special dust cloths specifically for cleaning the portraits. Regular inspections are carried out by government officials to ensure the portraits are properly maintained and hung in a prominent place within the home. Any neglect, such as a dusty or damaged portrait, can lead to accusations of disrespecting the state. This could result in public shaming, fines, or even imprisonment. The government's obsession with these portraits is rooted in its propaganda efforts. The Kim family is portrayed as the saviors and protectors of the nation, and the portraits serve as a constant reminder of their supposed greatness. This practice reinforces the regime's control over its citizens, ensuring that loyalty to the Kim family is ingrained in every aspect of daily life. Number 12. Government-assigned lifelong jobs. In North Korea, individuals do not have the freedom to choose their careers. Instead, the government assigns lifelong jobs to its citizens based on the needs of the state. This practice stems from the country's collectivist policies, where individual aspirations are subordinated to the goals of the regime. From a young age, North Korean children are taught that their primary duty is to serve the state, and this principle is enforced when they graduate from school and are assigned jobs. The job assignment process begins after high school graduation. The government evaluates the workforce requirements of various industries and assigns individuals to positions accordingly. Personal preferences, talents, or aspirations are not taken into account. For example, during Kim Jong-il's rule, thousands of graduates were relocated to remote areas like Taehongdan-gun, where they were tasked with farming potatoes to support the regime's agricultural policies. These individuals not only had to work in harsh conditions, but also build their own homes with little to no resources provided by the state. Once assigned, it is nearly impossible for individuals to change their jobs. Transfers are rare and typically require significant bribes to government officials. This lack of mobility traps people in professions they may not be suited for or enjoy, leading to widespread dissatisfaction and inefficiency in the workforce. In some cases, Entire families are forced to relocate to accommodate the job assignments of one member, further uprooting their lives. Number 11. Ban on smiling on July 8th. In North Korea, July 8th is a solemn and strictly controlled day of mourning. It marks the death anniversary of Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea and the central figure in its political ideology. On this day, citizens are forbidden from smiling, laughing, talking loudly, drinking alcohol, dancing, or engaging in any form of celebration or enjoyment. This ban is not limited to just the day, but extends to activities that could be perceived as disrespecting the memory of their eternal president. The government enforces these rules with an iron fist, and violators may face severe punishments, including imprisonment or forced labor in brutal camps. For instance, if someone smiles or talks loudly during this time, it can be interpreted as mocking the mourning period, and they may be accused of disrespecting the state or the Kim family. The consequences are harsh and often disproportionate, as even minor infractions are treated as acts of treason. The seriousness of this law was heightened in 2021, when the regime observed an extended mourning period to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death, Kim Il-sung's son and successor. For 11 days, citizens were banned from laughing or engaging in leisure activities. The government justified these extreme measures as a way to show collective grief and loyalty to the ruling family. Number 10. Censorship of foreign media. North Korea enforces one of the strictest censorship policies in the world, completely banning foreign media such as movies, books, and music. The regime tightly controls information and culture, ensuring that its propaganda is the only content available to its citizens. This censorship is designed to isolate North Koreans from outside influences, limit their understanding of the world, and maintain loyalty to the state. The government's propaganda department operates a strict surveillance system to monitor and control access to media. All TV channels, radio stations, and newspapers are state-owned and exclusively broadcast content that glorifies the Kim family and promotes the regime's ideology. There are only 4 television channels in North Korea, and they air propaganda, historical documentaries, often fictionalized, and state-approved entertainment. Foreign content, particularly from capitalist countries like South Korea and the United States, is strictly prohibited. The penalties for possessing or distributing foreign media are severe. In 2021, a man was reportedly executed for smuggling and distributing copies of the South Korean TV series Squid Game. Watching American films or listening to foreign music can result in imprisonment or even execution, depending on the content's perceived threat to the regime. The severity of punishment also depends on the origin of the material, with American content seen as the most dangerous. Number 9. Capital punishment for falling asleep. In North Korea, even minor actions can result in severe consequences, including death. One of the most shocking examples of this is the capital punishment that individuals can face for falling asleep or showing bad posture during government rallies. This law underscores the regime's obsession with loyalty and discipline, as well as its use of fear to maintain control over its citizens. A notable case occurred in 2015 when Hyun Yong-chol, North Korea's Minister of Defense, was publicly executed for allegedly napping during a military rally. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-Un reportedly saw this as a sign of disrespect and disloyalty. Hyun was executed by an anti-aircraft gun in front of hundreds of people, a method often used for public executions to serve as a terrifying example. This gruesome punishment was meant to send a clear message. Loyalty to the regime must be absolute, and any perceived negligence, no matter how small, will not be tolerated. A similar incident happened in 2016, when Education Minister Kim Jong-un was executed for having bad posture during a party rally. He was accused of being anti-party and anti-revolutionary, which led to interrogation and ultimately his execution. These extreme measures highlight the regime's paranoia and its demand for unwavering devotion to its leadership. Number 8. State-approved hairstyles. In North Korea, personal expression through hairstyles is heavily restricted. Citizens are only allowed to choose from a list of state-approved hairstyles, 10 for men and 18 for women. This rule reflects the regime's desire to control every aspect of its citizens' lives and to suppress individuality, ensuring conformity to the state's ideals. The official list of approved hairstyles was first introduced in 2013 and has been updated over the years. For men, hairstyles must be conservative and neat. Young men are required to keep their hair shorter than 2 inches, while older men, aged 60 and above, are allowed to grow their hair up to 3 inches. This strict regulation means that men must visit the barber frequently, often every 2 weeks, to ensure compliance. Women's hairstyles, on the other hand, are dictated by their marital status. Single women are encouraged to have longer, more elaborate hairstyles, while married women are expected to keep their hair shorter and simpler. Unapproved hairstyles, such as dyed hair, mohawks, or spiked styles, are strictly forbidden. Citizens who attempt to adopt these styles risk punishment, which can include public shaming, fines, or being forced to cut their hair on the spot. The Patriotic Youth League, a government organization tasked with enforcing social conformity, is responsible for monitoring and regulating citizens' appearances. They conduct random inspections, and violators are often interrogated or humiliated in public. Number 7. Triplets taken by the state. In North Korea, the birth of triplets is considered a sign of good fortune and prosperity. However, the government has a unique and controversial policy regarding these children. When triplets are born, they are taken from their parents and raised in state-run orphanages or nurseries until the age of 4. While the policy is framed as a way to provide special care for these children, it also reflects the government's desire for control over its population. The origins of this policy can be traced to North Korea's declining birth rate. The regime views triplets as a rare and valuable occurrence, symbolizing luck and the potential for the nation's growth. To ensure their well-being, the government claims that it is best suited to care for them during their early years. Mothers who give birth to triplets are often transported to Pyongyang to receive high-quality medical care during delivery. Afterward, the government takes custody of the children, offering the family symbolic gifts in return. For example, girls are given gold rings while boys receive silver knives. During their time in state-run facilities, triplets are provided with food, clothing, and education. However, the quality of care in these facilities is questionable, given the country's limited resources and widespread poverty. Parents are allowed to reunite with their children when they turn 4. But the separation during these critical early years can have a lasting emotional impact on both the children and their families. Even after they return to their families, triplets are often treated differently by the state. They are given preferential access to education, military service, and job opportunities. This is part of the regime's effort to frame triplets as symbols of national pride and good fortune. However, this special treatment also comes with increased scrutiny. Triplets and their families may face more government monitoring and pressure to demonstrate loyalty to the regime. Number 6. Limited internet access. North Korea is one of the most isolated countries in the world, and this isolation extends to its internet access. While most of the world relies on the open World Wide Web, North Korea restricts its citizens to a domestic-only network called Kwangmyong, translated as bright. This intranet, which was launched in 2000, is entirely controlled by the government and serves as a closed-off version of the internet, ensuring that citizens have no access to external information or influences. Kwangmyong is only accessible within North Korea, and its content is carefully curated by the state. It reportedly contains around 500 websites, though these are limited in scope and heavily monitored. The network includes state-approved educational resources, news, propaganda materials, recipes, and even some online games. However, all communication on the intranet is tracked, and any attempt to access unauthorized content can lead to severe punishment. State officials and a small elite group of trusted individuals are the only ones permitted access to the global internet. Even then, their usage is closely monitored, and the government restricts access to certain websites. For the general population, connecting to the wider internet is impossible. Using foreign devices or smuggled technology to bypass this restriction is considered a serious crime. For example, individuals caught with unauthorized internet-enabled devices or attempting to access foreign content can face imprisonment, forced labor, or even execution in extreme cases. Number 5. Can't share the leader's name. In North Korea, it is illegal for citizens to share the same name as the country's leader. This law was implemented in 2011 after Kim Jong-Un became the Supreme Leader. All individuals named Jong-Un were required to change their names, and the same rule has been retroactively applied to previous leaders, such as Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. The government enforces this ban to ensure that the names of the ruling Kim family are treated with an almost divine level of respect and exclusivity. This policy is part of the Kim regime's broader effort to maintain its cult of personality, where the leaders are not just political figures, but are revered as godlike beings. By forbidding anyone from sharing their names, the regime creates an aura of uniqueness and supremacy around the Kim family. This symbolism reinforces the idea that the leaders are above ordinary citizens and untouchable in status. The ban extends beyond living leaders. For example, even Il-sung, the name of North Korea's founder, cannot be used for newborns, despite being a common name before his rise to power. Recently, this law has reportedly been extended to Kim Jong-un's daughter, Kim Ju-ae, who is believed to be his successor. This means that anyone named Ju-ae will also have to change their name to comply with the law. Changing one's name in North Korea is not a simple process. Citizens must go through an official procedure to register a new name, and failure to comply with the law can result in punishment. The government monitors birth registries and other official documents to ensure enforcement. Number 4. Government-controlled housing. In North Korea, housing is entirely controlled by the state. Citizens cannot buy, sell, or lease property, as all buildings and land are considered state property. Instead, the government assigns housing to individuals and families based on their social status, occupation, and loyalty to the regime. This system ensures that the state maintains control over where people live and prevents individuals from accumulating wealth through real estate. Housing assignments are often deeply tied to a citizen's songbun, a classification system that determines their social standing. People with high songbun, those who are considered loyal to the regime, are more likely to be assigned housing in desirable areas, such as Pyongyang. In contrast, those with low songbun, such as individuals with a family history of dissent or perceived disloyalty, are often relegated to rural areas with fewer resources and opportunities. Living in Pyongyang, the capital, is considered a privilege, and not everyone is allowed to reside there. Citizens must obtain special permission to live in the city, which is reserved for those deemed most loyal to the regime, such as government officials, military personnel, and members of the elite. The housing in Pyongyang is generally of higher quality compared to the rest of the country, but even there, basic amenities like electricity and running water are unreliable. While buying and selling property is illegal, a black market for housing has emerged in recent years. Citizens have found ways to exploit loopholes in the system by trading their residency rights, known as ipsa-jung. For example, individuals may bribe local officials to issue new residency certificates under a different name, allowing them to transfer housing unofficially. The cost of such transactions varies, but typically involves cash, cigarettes, or alcohol as bribes. Number 3. Bicycles banned in Pyongyang. In North Korea, bicycles have a surprising and complicated history. For many people around the world, bicycles are a key mode of transportation, providing an affordable and environmentally friendly way to travel. However, in 1991, North Korea imposed a ban on bicycles in the capital city, Pyongyang. The reasoning behind this ban was tied to the regime's desire to portray itself as a modern and advanced society. At the time, bicycles were considered a symbol of poverty, and the government wanted its citizens to rely on motor vehicles instead, projecting an image of progress and affluence. Unfortunately, this policy backfired. North Korea's economy was in decline, and most citizens could not afford a car. Even basic necessities like food were scarce, let alone the luxury of owning a motor vehicle. In 1992, the authorities recognized the impracticality of the ban and lifted it, allowing bicycles to return to Pyongyang's streets. However, just a few years later, in 1995, another restriction was introduced, this time targeting women. Women were prohibited from riding bicycles, reportedly because the regime believed it was improper and immoral for women to be seen cycling in public. The rationale was based on outdated and sexist ideas that cycling might be too physically challenging or dangerous for women. Additionally, the sight of women riding bicycles was deemed too suggestive and damaging to public morality. This peculiar claim reveals more about the regime's obsession with controlling women's behavior than any actual moral concern. The restriction on women riding bicycles faced backlash from the population, especially as the country's transportation system continued to deteriorate. With few public transport options and the high cost of cars, bicycles remained one of the only viable options for commuting. Over time, the ban was eased in practice, though it was briefly reinstated in 2013. Today, women are more commonly seen riding bicycles, especially in rural areas, where practical needs outweigh government-imposed restrictions. Number 2. Ban on religion. North Korea is one of the most repressive countries in the world when it comes to religious freedom. The government has officially declared itself an atheist state, and religion is viewed as a threat to the regime's control. Faith in any higher power is seen as a challenge to the Kim family, who are revered as godlike figures. As a result, the practice of religion is strictly forbidden, and owning religious texts, such as a Bible, can result in severe punishments. The roots of this ban go back to the establishment of the North Korean state in 1948. Kim Il-sung, the country's founder, sought to eliminate all competing ideologies, including religion, which could undermine the cult of personality surrounding him. Churches, temples, and other religious institutions were closed or repurposed for state use. Today, while there are a few state-run churches in Pyongyang, they are entirely controlled by the government and serve as propaganda tools to create the illusion of religious freedom for visiting foreigners. For ordinary North Koreans, practicing religion is extremely dangerous. The possession of religious texts, such as the Bible or the Quran, is considered a serious crime. In one horrific case, reported in 2023, a family, including a 2-year-old child, was sent to a prison camp for life after they were caught with a Bible. Such punishments are intended to send a clear message. Loyalty to the regime must come above all else, and there is no room for competing beliefs. Christianity, in particular, is seen as a major threat because of its association with Western nations, like the United States and South Korea. North Koreans who are caught practicing Christianity or spreading religious materials are often subjected to brutal interrogation, imprisonment, and even execution. Defectors have reported that entire families can be punished under the regime's 3-generation punishment rule if one member is discovered to be religious. Number 1. Ban on Western clothing. North Korea's ban on jeans and Western clothing may seem bizarre to outsiders, but it fits into the regime's broader campaign against foreign influence. Introduced as part of a crackdown on Western decadence, this ban reflects the government's efforts to control cultural expression and ensure that its citizens adhere to traditional, state-approved norms. The ban on jeans has its roots in the division of Korea in 1945, when the North became a communist state backed by the Soviet Union, while the South aligned with the capitalist United States. Since then, North Korea has portrayed the West, particularly the United States, as its enemy. Jeans, being a symbol of American culture and capitalism, are seen as an ideological threat. Wearing them is considered unpatriotic and a sign of disloyalty to the state. The ban does not stop at jeans. Western clothing styles, such as tight-fitting outfits, short skirts, and even certain hairstyles, are also prohibited. Women, in particular, face additional restrictions. Unless they are wearing a work uniform, women are technically not allowed to wear trousers. Patriotic Youth League officers patrol the streets to enforce these rules, and violators may be interrogated, fined, or forced to write confessions. In some cases, their names and addresses are broadcast over government-controlled loudspeakers as a form of public shaming. The regime justifies these bans by claiming that Western styles promote individualism and moral corruption, which are incompatible with North Korea's collectivist ideology. However, critics argue that these policies are more about control than morality. By dictating what people can and cannot wear, the government suppresses personal expression and reinforces its authority over even the most mundane aspects of daily life. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click on the video on your screen for more quality content.